Hello everybody. So what a pleasant surprise today for long-term MSTR holders, for long-term holders of MicroStrategy, because he announced a insane buy, a major buy, a huge buy, as some people may say, nearly $2 billion worth of Bitcoin. And this is a surprise to me. And I like that this is a surprise. I was not expecting this big of a buy. Why is it a surprise? Because last week he bought 500 mil. I was expecting you run-of-the-mill, few hundred mil buy this week. That's what I was expecting. No, he bought 2 billion 2 weeks ago. You will note that he bought only 10 million 2 weeks ago. And you may remember X being all upset. Oh, he bought essentially nothing. He remains unpredictable. He buys 10 million one week, 500 million another week, 2 billion another week. We don't know when he buys. He remains fully unpredictable. And this is great for the volatility of the stock, because the volatility is a major reason for the demand of the preferreds and the demand of the converts. That's why he can issue more equity, issue more preferreds, issue the ATM, tap the ATM, because there's a lot of demand on the stock, because a lot of money managers, a lot of hedge funds buy the stock because they want to do the gamma trade. They want to use it as the volatility, as the high octane fuel in their options engine. MicroStrategy, many people hold that stock not for Bitcoin, they hold it for their options engine, for their gamma trade. You gotta keep the volatility alive, and I'm happy to be surprised to the upside and to the downside. We should be happy when we're surprised to the downside of a buy with strategy as well, because this is a pro-volatility move. Now, you may wonder, where did the 1.92 billion come from? Because if you read the 8K, and by the way, kudos, I love the transparency they bring in those 8Ks. I also love the honesty. You can see net proceeds here are net of sales commission. I actually was looking at another company not too long ago who was showing the proceeds and then the commissions. You got to go to the footnotes to find out that there's a 3% commission. So I also love that added transparency. Very transparent company. Anyways, the point is, he raised 1.22 billion and he bought 1.92. Where did the extra 700 million come from? Well, you may recall that he saved cash from one of his prior ATMs a few weeks ago. We were all surprised to the downside. We thought he was going to buy more, and he bought less. That, again, is a pro-volatility thing. I love that we can't predict when he buys, because it increases the implied volatility of the stock, which means that your options premiums are higher, which means that MicroStrategy remains a high-octane fuel for any options portfolio. Note the update to $711 million are coming from the Strife offering, and more ATM, in my view, will be done on that, and ATM on that one will be announced, in my view. I don't know when. He has to wait maybe a little bit to do it, but it will be announced, in my view. So anyways, moving on to the price to NAV update. And this is the whole idea of the coil spring, and I'll get to that in a second. But of course, the price to NAV went down today despite that buy. And frankly, that's a little illogical. That's why I think this stock is kind of a coil spring right now. It's kind of loading up for an explosive upside moment at one point. So before today's buy, we had a 1.78x NAV. After today's buy, we are at a 1.71x NAV. So he added more Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Just like in the case of a coil spring, if you push the spring down, you add more pressure to the spring. He added more Bitcoin to the balance sheet, and the price, frankly, is not as high as it should be in my view. And so we're loading the spring. This is what happens. And at some point, that price is going to have to move at some point, because the price to NAV, if it keeps going down as he adds Bitcoin to the balance sheet, at one point that Bitcoin will push up the price, because people will see the deal, people will see the opportunity in the Bitcoin held on the balance sheet. It's kind of like physics. And so this stock for me is like a coil spring, loading up, adding more Bitcoin to the balance sheet. And right now I find the stock fairly cheap, although it's my biggest position right now, MicroStrategy. So I have to be careful with position sizing. But still, it's like we keep applying pressure to the spring. At one point, it's going to pop, and I love to see that much pressure being added today by adding $1.92 billion. Now, one big update I wanna make in this video is I wanna officially crown Michael Saylor as the Sandbag King, the king of sandbags. Why? Because on February 5th, 2025, the Q4 presentations gave us a Bitcoin yield, a target for a full year 2025. That target was 15%. So think about that. Less than 2 months ago, he gives us a target for a Bitcoin yield on the company of 15%. And today, this Monday, we are at 11% BTC yield. We've achieved 11%. The target is 15%, and that's why he's the king of sandbag. It's like, you really think he's gonna be done? So what? He's gonna do another buy next week, and then he's not buying for the rest of 2025? Is that what we believe? Is that what we seriously believe? This BTC yield target, in my view, is heavily sandbagged. Notice how, with today's big buy, how quickly that can move. Last week, we were at 7.7 year-to-date yield, and this week, we are at 11%. Another buy like this, and the 2025 target will be outdated, and he will need to update that target. And so my guess is that he will update that up. Will we get a year closer in line to 2024? Will we get something like, a 35 or 40% BTC yield for 2025? I think maybe. I think it's going to be much higher than that, is what I think. Anyways, let me conclude this video. Is MicroStrategy, at this point, even becoming risk off? Today is another very bloody day in the market, another very risky day in the market, and MicroStrategy is barely, it's barely down. Is it down? It's not even barely down. So and Bitcoin is so stable. As goes my joke, Bitcoin has been a stable coin for like a month. It's like 85 plus or minus 2%. And if you studied Bitcoin for a long time, you know that this is the way it's going to be. This is the way it's supposed to be. Bitcoiners firmly believe Bitcoin is going to be the safest thing at one point. This asset is slowly decoupling from risk asset and being seen as risk off. That's the way I interpret it. But anyways, today another ugly day in the market, but not for MicroStrategy, which I'm very happy about because it's my biggest position, like I said. So anyways, this was not financial advice, not investment advice. This is only entertainment. Hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful day.